Welcome today, my friends. How are you doing this fine morning? I know rhetorical questions probably not going to get your interest if you're going to only stay for 3 seconds, but welcome anyway. So, today's conversation on the spell of the day. Can you believe we're already week 6, day 4? Like, hello, how awesome is this? Like, consistency is awesome. I love it. And I really appreciate how, a massive shout out to Mike, to Rex, to Andrew, to everybody who is joining me in these almost daily workshops, right? Not only is it allowing me to figure out what framework is best to teach, but it's also giving the exact thing that they need in order to get them going to the next level. Like, Rex is a badass for having gone through the rite of transformation, right? Guy is going to be exploring that. Like that's what his next thing is. Mike is learning both. He's learning what it's like to do magic on both sides. And so a huge shout out to that for the application of this stuff as a lifeway pursuit. And with Andrew, getting all the herbs to do the Spell of the Day challenge, man, congratulations, man. Like, this is awesome. You'll be able to create so many different ways to change the environment for those that you love and those that you're working with and those that you serve. So just a massive, big hearts to all y'all. So today's blend is to get out of a situation and transform it with the most potential, right? So saffron, in this case, is expensive as fuck. Everything has to be hand-picked with saffron. Now, the neat thing is that you can get some really great stuff at the kitchen section at your local grocery store. So we're only going to add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 8 grains of this stuff. And it's like $1.50 a grain. Like, it's like $8 right there. Jesus fuck. All right. So the maidenhair fern, we're going to use the same ingredient as we used yesterday. We're going to use a tablespoon of this. Now, this is a transmutation ingredient. This stuff here is designed for changing out the way that the world is going to work around you, right? So when you burn this, mind your allergies with this stuff, folks. Like, I know I can handle it. I just don't know about if you can handle it. So be careful. Do your homework. Go up, look on the ingredients list. Make sure that you don't have any medications that are contraindicated to each other. And that way you can be nice and safe with this. But celandine and the maidenhair fern are going to not be in equal measure. I'm only going to use a teaspoon of celandine. Now, you can use this if you're doing things for the court cases. You can use this stuff to escape a situation. So, it's one of those things, if you ever have Cunningham's book of incense oils and brews, that stuff you can use is part of a law stay away, right? Like you're doing something and you need something to stay away. But it's not so much that they're going to stay away, it's that you're going to be able to get out of the situation that you're in. But with the transformation element to it, right? You're going to be transforming the situation so you don't need to escape. Right? Or that you do, but you're going to come out of it differently, right? And so this is where the saffron comes in, is it fortifies your resolve and it fortifies the spell itself so that the spell and the ingredients don't necessarily be the thing that's holding you back, right? It's how you come out of it. That's what's going to be the key in this particular case, because as you're doing this, you want to make sure that you think about all the ramifications of what it is before you set to task. So before you set out and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this thing today, and that's the thing that you need to do to get you free and clear of something else, right? And so going through and being meticulous about all of these things is extremely important, and that's the thing about the spells of the day, is that you can use them in a non-meticulous manner, or you can use them in a meticulous manner. So that way, how you develop, what you're developing in all of these creates the change in your life that you seek, right? The problem is also with these two is that they're very fluffy ingredients, so you kind of have to push down a little bit harder. That's why I'm using the heavier mortar and pestle today, instead of the porcelain one that I use for the resins and such. So, with this spell being said, the gateways of transformation, right? So like the primary thing within this ingredient blend, because saffron is just a support. Saffron's just a little like kick it up a notch kind of ingredient blend. And then you've got your celandine, which is going to be reinforcing the transformation aspect, but it's not going to be overpowering it. This is why we use the 1 tablespoon versus a teaspoon, right? So the more of an ingredient you have, the more of that nature you're getting in your ingredients, right? Now, this here is going to be following the law of narration. And now, that was a question that was asked yesterday, is what is the law of narration? Well, the order of ingredients that you put into your spell blend in the way that they are stacked and their measurement quantity creates the outcome that you seek. It's sort of establishing genesis out of your ingredient blend. So as you apply your spell of the day, you're creating your application for it. So you know that there's a situation that's at hand. You know that there's something that you have to do to transform, and you need the strength by which you can transform into it, or out of it, or around it, or it itself, for yourself or someone else. And that's what's really cool about the workshop that was done yesterday with Mike and everybody that showed up, is that we went through sigils, and we went through the linear ones, and we went through the non-linear ones. And the linear ones, I'm going to say, are the numerological ones, the ones that you use the mathematical tables for. That they're repeatable, they're structured, they're formatted in a way that you can do them over and over and over again. Well, Rex brings to the table the chaos background, the chaos magic. And so we went through Spare's work. We went through non-linear, non-structured construction of sigils. We even went through the Liber Sigillium from the DKMU. So to give an example of like the Ellis sigil, or like the different DKMU gods, and how to construct different nodes and things like that around the cities, and just how to apply sigil magic as a way to cause direct manifestation a lot faster than having to go through and grind down your herbs and having to do all of this. But we have also the ability to draw them out in a, what's up, Mike? Welcome. In a 3-dimensional pattern. So that way, when you create your sigil on a 2-dimensional, like you've got the length and the width, right? It's on a piece of paper. It's made out of the ink in a correspondence accordingly. But then you have ingredients of the spell that you're trying to cast, and you build it in a 3-dimensional way. So you've created a 4-dimensional operation, meaning that the words that you're speaking into it, the thoughts you're projecting into it, are creating the time around which the density of everything moves. And so by doing this, you have the application of doing something really interesting when it comes to opening up the gates, pulling down the spirits, creating the manifestation that you're looking for. So the ink blends that we're making are only part of the process. So when you create the sigils, when you create the spellcraft, when you create the gateways through which these things come through, right? In the same way that you use the opening of the worlds, right? The different worlds, different planets are the physical dross around which energies come through in space, right? So in this case, we use sun for representing the light. It is Pluto, or Neptune in this case, to be the darkness. Pluto's not a planet anymore, so I don't use it. I'll use Neptune as the dark sphere, the thing on the furthest edge of the cosmos. Farthest thing away from the sun, right? And then we've got Uranus, which is, I use this to represent chaos. The XAOS is the universal principle of the things out in space, right? Like there's asteroids, there's comets, there's supernovas, flares, black holes, all sorts of shit, right? Again, it's the darkness, and then it's the cosmos, okay? And then we've got Jupiter, represents time. I've used Saturn to represent death. I use Venus to represent life. I use Mars to represent the mind. I use Mercury to represent the spirit, right? The moon, I say, is the phantasmagoria, is the reflection of all of that, because it is a reflection of light back upon this planet. So when you're conjuring the sources with these ingredients, right? Just to give you an example, saffron, in this case, is representative of the sun, okay? Celandine is a representative of the sun. Maidenhair fern is a representation of Mercury. So we have 2 lights, 1 spirit, right? So you're bringing light to a spirit. How's that for fun, right? So that's another way that you can look at building these blends out, so that you have the sorceress application of them, you have the planetary application of it, and you have the witchcraft principles of it, right? And it all follows the narration. So you're bringing two forms of sunlight to the spirit. You're bringing two types of light into the situation that you need, so you can transform it as you need to, right? You can disrupt the chaos that is, and you can balance out what you need to, and you can refortify it by bonding the celandine and the saffron together as one individual unit, bringing it together with the transformation aspect of the maidenhair fern. So in this way, you've got the applications down. Now you just need the what you're going to do with it, right? So in this case, again, minding your allergies, you could burn this. This could be a gate opening to the paths of, from the gates of the sun into the gates of Mercury. There is a way that you can do that. And so if you've ever picked up the copy of the Simon Necronomicon, or if you ever used my copy of the Codex Arcanum Volume 1, the way that those gate spells are structured, it's moving from one sphere into another from the sphere that precedes it. Okay? So it's, I'm going to open up the gate of Mercury, but I'm going to have to go through the gate of the sun or the gate of Mars that precedes it because of the walking of the spirit through, right? It's the yin state of Mars, or Mercury in this case, that's going to receive the energy from the push of the planet behind it. So Mercury has to receive, the other things have to project. So you have to project into the receiving aspect, and then you have to project from that and receive back here on Earth. So you are creating the triangle. You're building that pyramid of art. You're building the gateway, because you've got, so like I said, this is where it's going to get a little bit funny, right? So you've got the energy from here, or from whatever sphere that you're trying to draw through from, right? In this case, the sun, using the spell today as an example. So from the sun into Mercury. Okay? Now we have to get Mercury, the light aspect of Mercury, over through its elements, right? Through whatever it exists at. That's creating the length on the sphere of Mercury. It's creating, you've got the inroad, now you have the path of transformation, and now you have to get from that gate to here. So you've, instead of built a pyramid of just simple interaction, now you've stretched it out and you actually have the full square, right? Now you've got the exact gateway that you need, so that way you can build it up and pass through the smoke. That way you can bring the spirits through, that way you can project the spirits through, but you've got something that exists from, to, and on each of those pathways, right? So you have, how did the light transfer into a spirit? Well, it has to go through life, death, light, mind, time, all of these things, right? And so as it comes back into this world, what do you need it to manifest, right? What other elements can you include? So in this case, in your three-dimensional spell, you would create something that is indicative of the transformation that that light has to move through from the sun into Mercury, down back here into Earth. And that is what you're doing when you build your three-dimensional space. So what could those objects be? That could be a candle that's the color of Mercury, right? Yellow, right? And then you've rolled it with the herbs, so that way it's imbued with the ingredients that you're doing. So like you could put this on a yellow candle, and you could conjure down the sphere of Mercury and the spirits of it by bringing the light to it, right? And in this case, the celandine and the saffron allow that to happen. And so as it's manifesting, as it's going through its changes, as it's going through its developmental state, the manifestation that you're bringing down, even if it's a three-dimensional representation and it's as simple as a picture of an array or a gate on it with a candle sitting on top of it, that could be as simple as it gets. Or you could bring out the animal skulls. You could bring out one of the creatures of Mercury. You could bring out one of the, and I'll let you do your homework on those, because that's not what this particular section of the spell work is for. That's the second season of the spell of the day, right? Is it when we start using the animal skulls or the representation of these. So that way what we're doing and how we're applying what we find in nature, or how nature comes about, right? So let's look at the Egyptian gods real quick, right? You've got the humanoid aspect of it, you've got the animal aspect of it, and so when you combine both of those, you're creating a compound spell. You're adding that nature into the individual, you're adding that nature into the spell, right? So if you're going to do a spell of animation and you need to call on a crocodile-headed god, then you use a tooth from the crocodile or alligator or whatever. And you can animate that, and it becomes a totemic representation of that god spirit that you're working with. And so therefore you have an effigy that is created of both human and god if you bond the gator skull with human bones, and then you make a totem out of it. You mummify it, and you can put it on your altar, and you can make it as a totemic representation. So that way you can have something that is a exact replication of those spirits that you're bringing down into your space. And then the incense blends and stuff that you feed it, that you give it, are the pathway that gives it strength so that its manifestation comes to pass accordingly. But focusing back on today's blend, we're transforming situations that need to get you out of where you're at, right? Something needs to change, right? And so this provides the primary thing of being central to that transformation. So this is, again, Mercury, okay? We had saffron as our first ingredient, bringing in the sun. We had Mercury as our second ingredient in double format of the last aspect of the sun, right? So we're moving it from the sun into Mercury and then back to the sun again. So we have created that arch. We've created that pathway of energy to flow, creating a spirit path for the light itself to travel on. So we are creating a light spirit through that arching, right? And so I will leave you with that today, my friends. Be safe. Have fun with this stuff. It gets complicated, but it should be interesting to see what you guys get up to. I look forward to seeing you in the group. So I look forward to seeing you in the comments, anywhere this video gets posted. Thank you so very much for your time today, and I will check you in the comments and see you for the Right in the Afternoon today at 2 p.m. Pacific. Alrighty, my friends. Stay safe, and remember, don't be evil. Bye for now.